Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the August 5th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Please note this meeting is being attended by the Planning Commission and applicants both via teleconference and in person. We thank you for your patience as we navigate city business through the new meeting process. For the benefit of the public and as required by the Brown Act, all voting will be on roll call. I will now call the meeting to order. Before again, I will ask Commissioner Navarez-Fermenta to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Place your hand over your heart. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Dominguez is absent. Commissioner Owens?
Present.
Commissioner Spathopoulos?
Present.
Vice Chair Fermetta?
Present.
And Chair Duarte.
Present. Okay. Now is the time for any planning commissioner announcements, requests for future agenda items, and conference meeting reports. Commissioner Owens, do you have any?
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Spatos?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fermenta?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
And I have none. Thank you. Director Schindler, do we have any presentations for today?
Chairman, no presentations tonight.
Okay. Director Schindler, are there any city council actions to report on?
No actions to report on, Chairman.
Okay, now's the time for public hearings. We're actually going to reopen the hearing on PLN-20-0029 that was continued from last month. Director Schindler, do we have staff making presentation on this?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Duarte. We have our principal planner, Guillermo Arreola, to provide a presentation for us tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Let me get my clicker. Sorry about that. This item was originally presented to the Planning Commission at the July 1st meeting. During this meeting, several discussion items were raised regarding the proposed bar and lounge, and they included open air facade for bar use, proposed live entertainment hours, lack of information for live entertainment, configuration and monitoring of outdoor seating, compliance with accessibility requirements, and food sales relative to alcohol sales. The Planning Commission directed staff to work with the applicant and prepare conditions that would support an approval of the proposed bar lounge use. Following the meeting, staff connected the applicant with LA County Health Department to ensure that the facility would be able to comply with their standards. The applicant has since revised his plans to expand the use into the adjacent tenant space so that a prep kitchen and temperature control can be provided for the proposed service with Health Department approval. And what you see is in orange is the expanded area. The revised floor plan now shows a new prep kitchen, along with other changes to address concerns from the prior meeting. The police department had concerns over monitoring the outdoor seating area along 3rd Street, so the applicant removed the component. And in order to provide ADA compliance, the seating area at Downey Avenue and the corner of 3rd Street will have glass panels instead of a planter, narrower to allow for accessibility along the public right-of-way. The applicant has shown where live entertainment will be provided, as shown on the site plan. The renderings reflect the change from planters to glass panels and the removal of the seating area along 3rd Street. The originally proposed materials along the facade and finishes will remain the same. The applicant revised his request for live entertainment to specify hours that are consistent with the other live entertainment uses in the downtown area. The The applicant requested to allow 4 performers as part of their live entertainment. However, staff attempted to follow the direction understood at the prior meeting, so a condition was provided to specify that no more than 2 performers were to be allowed. Similarly, the following conditions were added to make the use consistent with other establishments in the downtown. Food sales available at all times, alcohol is served. Gross sales must reflect a minimum of 50% food sales. Live entertainment defined and hours specified. Doors and windows closed during live entertainment. No public access from 8403 3rd Street, that's the expansion, the area under expansion, and an annual review to evaluate the effectiveness of conditions. A bar-only establishment without a full restaurant is a new use in the downtown area, which is why staff added the conditions for an annual review to ensure the conditions are appropriate for the new use. There is a minor correction on condition number 18, which should read Friday and Saturday from 4 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. 1:30 a.m., excuse me. So Friday and Saturday from 4 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. The applicant has been informed of this correction, and he had no objections with the correction. An approval resolution has been prepared for the proposed use, and this concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Guillermo. Commissioner Owens, do you have any questions?
I have none. Just a quick comment. Thank you, staff, and thank the applicant, and I'll thank him when he gets up there for working diligently, quickly to turn this back around and bring it back to us. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Spatos?
I do have a question. In regards to the updated glass panels that surround the outdoor seating area, that went from a 2-block cinder wall to a glass panel, was the block wall that was there previously, was that not ADA approved? Is that why it went to a glass wall instead of a cinder block wall? Because from the previous drawings, and actually you can see it here, it shows looks like a 2-foot block wall with glass panels just above it that might be a foot. Is there a reason that changed?
Yes, the reason for the change is in order to comply with accessibility requirements in the public right-of-way, the width, the thickness of that was well too thick. So in order to comply, they had to reduce the thickness to glass panels so that they can maintain the required 4-foot public right-of-way for accessibility purposes.
So were the original plans with the block wall not ADA compliant?
The measurements that were provided were not ADA compliant.
So we're talking a matter of inches here, because what is a block wall? 6 inches as opposed to like 3 inches on a glass?
Yes.
If I may, Chair Duarte, provide some clarification. What was previously proposed was a planter wall. So it did have additional thickness than just a regular CMU, because you needed the sides and then the soil in the middle. So I believe it was going to take up about a foot or so, if not a little bit more. I think it was more along 1.5 feet. The area around it, the original plan, did not comply with ADA requirements, and that was one of the items that was noted at the meeting. That's why when we did go back, we worked with Public Works. We were very clear on what the measurements were with the existing utilities, and the revision was made so that he didn't lose the seating area on the exterior, and we still maintained ADA compliance.
Okay, I'll get into it a little further, I guess, later. I don't know. It seems like I mean, you're giving up one thing for the other, but I guess we'll discuss it further. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Fermetta?
I have no questions.
And I just have a couple of clarifications. So I know last time we were here, 3rd Street, there was not going to be any seating along 3rd Street. There was just going to be kind of a similar wall on Downey Avenue. So what's proposed now on Downey Avenue?
Only at the corner, Mr. Chairman, only at the corner will there be seating, but anything east of the entrance along 3rd Street, there'll be nothing.
So that little area is totally gone.
It's totally gone.
Okay. That was before and after. Okay. All right. Okay, and then, just two questions on some of these conditions, following that up. Is condition 28, the 50% of food sales, is that, can you elaborate why that was added?
Well, we typically have, add that condition to all places that serve food. It was also brought up at the last meeting by one of the commissioners to limit or to require that 50% of the food, of the sales, gross sales be directed towards food. But that's something typically that we add to places that serve food.
Okay. But that's not something that's typically with this type of license, correct?
With the type 48,
Yeah,
that is correct.
okay. And then just the condition 16, the annual reviews, what is that going to consist of?
So that will consist of a 6-month review, initial 6-month review, and then yearly thereafter. Now, please be aware, though, that if there are no issues throughout that following year, then it will not be brought to you as a public hearing item. It will be brought to you as a consent item, just giving you an overview of the calls for service, if any, and that they're continuing to comply with the conditions of approval. If for some reason there becomes a problem arises, then it will get brought to you as a public hearing item. But if everything goes smoothly, then it'll just be consent item with information provided for the previous year.
And is that, I haven't seen that condition previously. Is that something that we have had previously?
No, we have had 6-month reviews on previous projects. However, because this is the first of a kind use in the downtown area, we just wanted to monitor it and make sure it doesn't, it continues to comply with the conditional use permit.
Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Any commissioners, anything else? No? Okay. Thank you, Guillermo.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we begin the public hearing, I'd like to remind members of the public participating telephonically that the city meeting rules contained in the Downey Municipal Code prohibit any conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting, even if you're participating telephonically. Each speaker shall have 3 minutes to address the commission. Members of the public wishing to address the planning commission regarding the public hearing for items PLN-20-0029 may now call our 299-6622. For those who submitted comments via email, your comments will be read into the record and no further public comment via teleconference will be permitted. For those present in the council chambers, your comments will be taken after phone and email comments are provided. I will now open the public hearing and we'll start by inviting the applicant to address the commission. Will you please step forward, say your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Simon Simonian. We met about a month ago regarding this project. My home address is 9135 Brock Avenue, Downey, California, and the proposed project address is 11002 Downey Avenue, California, Downey.
Okay, tell us what you want us to hear about your application.
So, I'd like to thank Guillermo and Crystal for working diligently on this with me. I hope I responded as well as they did on any of the issues we had. There's a couple of, how do I say this? There's a couple of points on the conditional use, the CUP, the permit, that I had, kind of arguments about. But I spoke to Guillermo about them to see if we can work them out before presenting it. But it was explained to me that it was going to be presented this way, that I would present my disputes to the commission and see where we went from there. First and foremost, as far as the floor plan is concerned, the outdoor seating along 3rd Street, I removed it because it was creating a problem. Realistically, I really didn't want to remove it. I just wanted to remove the seating, not necessarily the railing there, because the problem was they didn't want me to present a comfortable atmosphere for clients to sit down, potentially bring out a drink or whatever it is in that area. So at first I proposed, how about if we just remove the seats altogether and just leave it standing room for a possible smoking area. Also, there's going to be some ironwork and glasswork on the walls that will look like windows to dress the wall up somehow, because it's a pretty large wall and it's a plain wall. So when we were discussing originally, when we were discussing the design, it was suggested to me to put something on that wall. Originally, I wanted to do a green wall, like just cover it with ivy all the way. Then it changed into canopies with some lights, like kind of like drop lights, like I don't know how to call them, but they're kind of like sconces, but that extend out of the wall. Then we went finally to it looks like windows, but they have ironwork on them and glass. So, you know, aside from the area for people to stand and smoke if they wanted to get a smoking break, because it's not going to be any smoking in the whole area right there, in the used area. I wanted to leave an area where people just didn't roam the sidewalk smoking, to just kind of contain them, at least to control, you know, just crowd control. So I proposed to just put the railing there without the seats, but we couldn't get into thing, and I didn't want to delay this any further and go any longer on that. That's why I removed it. But I'd like to still leave that option open to putting a railing along that 3rd Street thing, matching the same railing as the patio on the front, something that matches like a glass railing, but without any seats in that area at all, so that nobody would be able to walk out there and have, you know, the idea of sitting down and using it as a service area. As far as control of that area, I think we discussed with the police department and planning department that I was going to put a security guard at the 3rd Street door, and that 3rd Street door will only be open from the inside, so you won't be able to enter from that side either. So it'll be controlled in that way, obviously putting signs up stating no drinks beyond this point and so on and so forth, like most other businesses do on the same street. When you're occupying a patio, usually they have a sign where it says no drinks beyond this point, explaining to customers that you can't take any alcohol beyond a certain point. And I would be able to control it with a security guard also, to maintain that if somebody wants to go out for a smoke, they can leave their drink behind at their table and go out for the smoke without anything in their hand. So that's first and foremost. Do we want to discuss each one of my points, or do I just present all the points? I'm sorry, I'm not.
You can go step one by one.
Okay. The other thing is, as far as the annual review, I know that I'm not the first bar in the world, let alone Downey. I understand it's the first bar presentation in downtown Downey, but it's not like downtown Downey is not part of Downey. So I'm assuming that they did a really good job in preparing a CUP with enough conditions on it to make sure that I don't break them. And I have no problem with coming here and receiving whatever punishment it is that you give to a businessman if they break the CUP, whether it be adjusting their CUP or pulling their CUP or whatever it is. But having an annual review is kind of excessive in my book. I don't mind having a review after the first year to see if we missed anything, if we did anything that's negative for me or negative for the city. I have no problem with that. But having an annual review, basically having my business being checked by with a microscope annually, I think it's unheard of. I've never heard of it actually in any CUP placed in any city I've ever worked in. I've had businesses in downtown LA, Montebello, Downey. I've had several businesses. I've never heard of an annual review of a business. It's just, I don't know I don't know why. Seems like it's just maybe specified by person. The other issue I had was the gross receipts of sales, which you mentioned. The line 26 says food service shall be provided at all times, which I'm okay with. I'm the one who's actually agreeing with that. I'm the one who presented the idea of serving food. So I'm all for serving food. I want to serve food. But if you look at the plates I'm serving, they're tapas, they're appetizers. The 50% food sales, yes, it is part of every other conditional use permit, because every other conditional use permit, it goes along with a 47 liquor license, which by the state of California requires you to have a 50% food sale. ABC does that. That's an ABC realm. I think, personally, I believe the planning department is just a little bit, they're going a little bit out of their realm in requiring me to have a 50% food sale. That would be like if somebody were to come in and have 2 drinks, they would have to have 2 appetizers to match. I'm not serving entrees where an entree covers 2 drinks in price. So for me to get a 50% food sale is just, it's an unachievable goal. It's impossible. Just for the fact that I'm serving food should be enough. I don't understand why I'm required to have a 50% food sale when ABC themselves doesn't require me to have anything. Per my liquor license, I have a 0% food sale requirement. I'm offering to serve food because I want to serve food, but I don't think I should be held accountable to sell 50% food. It just doesn't make sense to me. The fact that I'm serving food during my operating hours should be enough. The other point I wanted to ask for was line 35. It says cover for admission for the business shall not be permitted at any time. I have no problem with that. I'm not going to be charging cover, but I wanted the opportunity to just, maybe if we can adjust that clause to say charge cover during maybe pay-per-view events. If there was, like, let's say a fight of the century that was going to be played and my little space was worthwhile for me to buy a fight and show a fight on a TV or whatever, I want to get a permit. I feel like I should be able to charge for pay-per-view because that's what everyone else is able to do in the city. Also, maybe potentially something like a special event like New Year's Eve. I don't know who goes out on New Year's Eve here, but if you go anywhere on New Year's Eve, they charge you a cover. That's just business standards in any entertainment business. I think those were the only points I wanted to argue. Other than that, I think, like I said, the planning department with Guillermo and Crystal, and I don't know if Mr. Aldo had anything to do with it. I think they did a great job. I have no arguments per se on anything here other than just those points that I pointed out, which was line 16, line 27, and line 35. Outside of those 3, I think it's pretty simple to say everything else pretty much covers what I agree to and I'm fine with. And also, obviously, the other thing too I wanted to see if we can discuss was the railing along 3rd Street, used more for crowd control rather than for service or seating.
And just to interject really quick, if you looked at line item 36, that one said no hosted events or pay-per-view events at the location, which is consistent with line item 35.
Line 36?
Yes. So, and I think I saw a condition here with no TV, right? Yeah. And then,
23.
So, as it is now, the CUP does not permit pay-per-view or televisions as part of the business or live entertainment. I don't know if you saw those conditions. But.
I don't know which line we're talking about. I'm sorry. I don't see it anywhere here. Is this? I don't have the new one. I have the old one. Sorry. Oh, okay. So I don't have this one. The one I got in the email didn't have that one. Oh, okay. So I didn't even know that was in there. The one that was given to me originally for review didn't have those points in it. I guess I got to read the one that was being released here, which I just received right now. But I mean, if the decision here is not to allow me to have pay-per-view, it is what it is. I'm not worried about it. I'm only asking for the event that I ever do have an opportunity to present a pay-per-view event, just like I said, every other bar, every other restaurant in the city of Downey is able to. I just want to have the ability to. And as far as having a television in there, actually, I never presented whether I would have a television or not, and I still haven't decided if I was going to have a television or not, but I'd like to have the ability to put a television because part of my plan was to play old movies like Marilyn Monroe movies. Like I stated earlier, the whole design of the place is premised on old Hollywood. So I'd like to play, black and white movies, Sophia Loren movies, but no sports or anything like that. It's not sports bar. So, and I think, like I mentioned last time, it wouldn't be feasible for me to compete with myself since I already own a sports bar literally 5 doors down. So it's not a sticking point, but it is something that I'd like the opportunity to be able to do if the opportunity came up.
Okay.
So then I guess it would include the line item 23 and line item 30, what is it?
36.
Yeah. 23 is the television, so I'd like to have TVs, and the pay-per-view one, which is 36. So 23, 35, and 36 would be all basically lumped them together. Yeah. Yeah. I just got it today. So those three basically lumped up together, I'd like to see if we can adjust them somehow from the CUP that's being presented to you today, as well as the 50% and the annual review. Those are really the 3 points that I wanted to make off the CUP. Other than outside of the CUP, I'd like to see if we can visit the idea of putting railings along 3rd Street just to use as a crowd control feature to people who are out there smoking. Not for service, not for allowing anybody to take drinks out there. And just like any other business's CUP, it's going to be, daily reviewed by the police department or sudden visits from ABC or visits from the city vice squad that you guys come out and visit every once in a while, fire department. And like I said, I own a business in Downey already, and I'm familiar with the visits that we do receive where there's, just random checks. So if I'm breaking any of these rules, obviously I'm going to hear it from whoever's, the head of that department that's going to contact me, whether it be fire department, police department, and they're going to bring me in here in front of you to explain why I did what I did, and then at that point I'd be, punished for it or whatever it is. The CUP would be adjusted for it, or I would have, a revision of my CUP, which I've heard that's been done before, a revocation of CUP, which I know has been done before. So if I'm going to take the risk where I'm risking my CUP or my business as a whole, then obviously that doesn't make me a good businessman at all. So. I think it should be, I shouldn't be treated as a guilty businessman before I become guilty, almost kind of thing. I don't know if I'm making myself clear or not. I might be rambling, but it's hard for the words to come out smoothly right now.
Okay. Commissioner Owens, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I have one, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Simonian. So let's walk back the statements, or get into the statements you were making a little bit about 50% of sales being involved with food sales. So I heard your explanation in regards to that, but if you had a number, what's your number? I didn't hear you give us a number on what you think that percentage should be.
I mean, personally, I don't think percentages should be in play here. Just the fact that I'm required to sell food should be enough. But if we were to put a percentage, I would say probably 25% is logical because of the size of plates and the prices of plates that I'd be offering. But it's not something that's common usually with the 48 license. There's usually zero requirement of food sales. But the fact that I'm already agreeing to, or we've already came to an agreement, not me agreeing, sorry, we've come to an agreement that I would have to sell food during my hours of operation. So I can't sell alcohol without offering food. Now, I can't force somebody to buy food, but I have to make sure it's on the same menu, that it's available for purchase, that it's always there for people if they want to eat. Now, obviously, I'm not a restaurant, so I wouldn't be able to sell food. I wouldn't be able to force somebody to sit down and eat. Basically, that's what I'm saying. So it'd be impossible for me to meet that 50%. It's an unachievable goal. It's impossible. Considering the fact that if I'm serving a plate that's like, let's say $15 and you buy a drink that's $15. So if normally people who sit down and have a drink, they're gonna have 2 drinks during a conversation. And if it's a couple, that's 2 drinks each. And sometimes they'll share an appetizer or they'll each have an appetizer. But in this case, I would require them to buy 2 appetizers each to match their 2 drinks for me to get to that 50%. And that just doesn't work out. It's not a number that's achievable.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Commissioner Espatos?
Actually, going on the same point that Commissioner Owens had asked in regards to food sales, I think, Mr. Simonian, the fact that, the 50% designation that's usually given by the ABC for food sales, I mean, just being involved in bars, family businesses in the past, I've never really seen that enforced. I think the devil's in the details when we start getting into, okay, who's going to monitor this? Not to say that this contract is not binding and somebody can't go in and say, well, show us 50% of sales. I think it's there to keep everyone kind of doing what they have to do to keep this operating in the way that the city wants it to operate. And if you're doing 25% sales, it's a matter of, well, is the city going to send out someone to look at receipts for 50% of sales? Just giving you some of the stuff that I think is important for you to consider. I think the city just wants you to open, to operate, to keep it in a way where there's not problems. I think calls to Downey Police Department are an important one. And as Planner Guillermo mentioned, as far as the review, it may be a review the first 6 months to a year, and then eventually it'll become a consent item where you're not going to have people breathing down your neck. So I think that's important to consider as far as the 50% food. I know it's an ABC requirement. I've never experienced an ABC going in. I know they can, but requesting receipts to confirm that there's 50% of food sales. So just consider that. And then another question, I would be, before that actually, I would be open to not including TVs and pay-per-view events, but special cover charges for New Year's. If you wanted to do a cover charge on specific events, I would be open to that, just to give that information to the other planning commissioners. And then that's pretty much it. I think the side there on 3rd Street, the question that I had was the block wall, and this is something that I'll ask our planner, I think it kind of defeats the purpose of putting a glass separation there, because that block wall kind of creates, the flow from going out. When it's glass, it kind of merges and makes everything become one, where if there's a planter and a glass wall that's a foot, it kind of creates a barrier. So I think we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot by saying, well, let's put a glass wall there, because it kind of, I think it's doing exactly what we don't want to happen, bringing people out into the street with a glass wall. And I guess we can get into that later. So that's my question to you. Is that something that would be of interest to you, to keeping that planter, or is the glass wall something that works for you?
Well, just so that we're clear, maybe from the uh, drawing, it's not visible. I mean, people really can't walk through glass just like they can walk through blocks. So the glass wall is not open in any area. It's connected all the way around.
No,
So
I
you can't
understand
really
that, but I'm saying
cross
more
the
as a
glass
visual
wall.
effect.
Oh, visually. Well, I
So
mean,
you're okay with a glass wall. That's my
I'm
question.
okay with the glass wall. It's going to cost me a little bit more, but I think it aesthetically, actually, believe it or not, it kind of matches the street a little bit more than the green walls, which I had originally planned. And in my original plan that because I think from the drawings you really couldn't see it, but when I explained it to Guillermo over the phone, it was going to be glass anyways, but it was going to be a planter that was going to overflow greenery over the glass. So you wouldn't be able to see the glass, but there was going to be something solid there to begin with, because I think their concern originally from the last hearing was that they thought it was just planters so people can walk through them or cross them over and take the alcohol outside of the establishment's borders. Whereas I explained to them later, there was always a solid item, whether it be glass, wood, block walls, that's covered with greenery. So
Yeah, no, it's solid here. You can see it in the plans. It's totally solid.
Yeah.
My concern was I think it looks and closes off, because that was their main concern originally, was flow, right? Flow from the business.
I think their concern was people leaving the establishment with drinks in their hand beyond that point. They didn't, if I understood it correctly, my understanding was they didn't realize that it was enclosed. They thought it was just greenery, which you can, like, bushes or whatever that you can walk through with your drink. Yeah. I think that was their concern, was to control the crowd. And when I explained to them that it's actually glass, I just removed the greenery and I said, look, it's glass there. And then there was going to be a planter that was placed above the glass, which created some greenery along with the glass feature. The glass feature is actually something that's cohesive with Joseph's. Joseph's has glass features in their patio.
Right.
So it's not something that's like design-wise. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh.
What the plans show is something similar to Joseph's, where as opposed to what we have in the plans here, it just shows a glass wall that's about 3 feet separating.
I can always add plants to the glass. I just wanted to specify that there's something solid there for people not to exit. We can always add plants later to dress them up. That's not like it's not something that I think is, vital for the design. I think it's more. I was more concerned on showing in the renderings and in the design that there is a solid barrier for people not to exit the establishment from anywhere other than the main entrance. They cannot exit from the patio. I think that was my main concern, so that it comforts the planning department with my control of the crowd exiting the establishment. I think that's the reason for the glass. But adding greenery, I think that's always something that I want to do anyway, because I think it's fresh, it's nice looking, and it's very common nowadays in a lot of designs that you see in Hollywood and downtown LA and North Hollywood. So it's something that is definitely possible. Also, we have like a nice landscape area right there in the corner of was that 3rd and Downey, so it would kind of like blend with that if I did add greenery. But the greenery part of it is not really the major focus here. I think my major focus here was enclosing the patio with a solid barrier being glass, so that it kind of matched the rest of the street. If I put brick there, or I could have put metal rod, like a wrought iron gate kind of thing, but it doesn't really match the design of the whole establishment itself. So that's why I went glass, because I can put designs on the glass where they would match that old Hollywood style, that Art Deco style.
Okay, so basically you're okay with the glass?
I'm okay with it personally. It makes no difference to me, as long as, like I said, I think my main focus was having the open air design. So as far as the patio feel or the barriers on the patio, it didn't matter to me which way I went. I was very open to any ideas that they had or any suggestions they had, or we actually worked on this together. So I think it came out where it kind of worked for both of us to put glass there, and it showed a hard structure to maintain the crowd from exiting the location from the patio area.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Chairman.
Hi, Simon.
Hi.
I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
The first question is, which I'm stuck on, is what you mentioned earlier, that you had not seen the new,
Oh, the new CUP?
yeah, all the different items, and whether it's you did receive them, you haven't seen them, or I want to be fair to the applicant as well as to the city, and I'm going to ask this question. Does he need 10, 15 minutes to review what we're going to be accepting tonight? Because I feel that it will be unfair of any business that we move forward and he's not aware of what we're holding him accountable.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I absolutely agree. Typically, the report does get sent out. As the applicant noted, we have been working fairly collaboratively on this, and so we did send out different versions of conditions as they were being created. It seems that there was an oversight when the final agenda was sent out to the commission and out to the public. The copy did not get forwarded off to the applicant. So if the applicant does believe it's necessary, we agree that a 10-minute recess would be appropriate.
Would you?
Yeah, no, I will actually, I prefer it now that I saw that there's stuff on here that I didn't know before.
Okay. So I would prefer that he reviews his items first and then we continue.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute recess.
Okay, thank you.
Jimmy. Are you texting? Looks like we're back now. Did you have enough time to review the conditions?
Yeah, it's pretty much similar. It was just a couple of different points that weren't on my original copy that I received in the email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Fermetta, you had some questions?
Do you have any questions on any of the, or statements on the?
I did actually have one question. I didn't notice it was on here. What's a hosted event?
Crystal? would you like to
Sure.
say
Mr. Chair, if I may, a hosted event would be something where an outside agency, like a promoter or some other type of advertiser, hosts an event where they would charge a fee, a cover to have anything at the location.
Okay. So should I go over the numbers that you guys have now, which ones I'm?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure, thank you. So I'd like to start with number 16. Bar only. I'm pretty sure I'm not the first bar. I know I'm the first bar in the downtown area, but I'm not the first bar, period. So to have an initial 6-month review followed by annual reviews, I understand that it's being presented here as if there's no problems, then it'll just be submitted as, but I think just having the wording in my permit is kind of, I would say, unfair. Since there's no other business in Downey that has this. If you want to do a 6-month review and a review on your first year, I think by then we should know what points we missed on the CUP, if there's any corrections that need to be made, or any questions on the effectiveness of the CUP, which, again, I don't understand what effectiveness means, but I'm assuming it means like if we missed anything that we didn't cover. I think after a year of business, I think it should be evident if there's anything that we missed or not, if I'm functioning outside of my lane, per se. But to have an annual review anytime after the first year of working, I mean, if you can produce to me any other business in any other city that has this, I'd be surprised. I've never heard of that, anything like that, where you're having like your business checked on annually. That's number one. Number two, televisions are prohibited. It says televisions are prohibited as part of this business or live entertainment. So am I allowed to have live entertainment or am I not? I don't understand that number.
For clarification, the condition identifies that television is not included as part of the live entertainment approval. So later conditions do specify what live entertainment is, the number of performers not amplified, but it does specify that televisions are not part of live entertainment.
Okay, so if I had a television that was not part of the live entertainment, like if I had a television that was just playing a old movie, would that be something that falls under this, or just no televisions at all?
So that is something, if you did want to introduce that into this, would be the time to request it from the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, as we
So
previously.
I'd like to, sorry to interrupt. I'd like to request ability to have a television on site, to just, to show movies, or not necessarily, obviously it's not going to be the kind of place where you're going to have music videos, so it'd be specifically, you can even specify it for movies. And if we got to the next point, which was number 36 and 35, which kind of go hand in hand, the pay-per-view, considering if I am going to have a television on site, I'd like to be able to host a pay-per-view if it was financially positive for me. If it's something that I can make money from as a business, possibly to show pay-per-view. But again, I'm requesting it. If you don't deny it, you deny it. I'm not that worried about it. I'd rather just have the TV, at least to show old movies on it and stuff like that, to kind of stay within the same theme. Number 28, which is gross receipts of 50%. I think Commissioner Spathos mentioned that he knows businesses that ABC does require 50%, which every 47 license requires a 50%, but a 48 license, which I am applying for, requires a 0% food sales. I'm not saying I want 0%. I'm not asking for that because I am going to be selling food. And as I don't know what number it is on this one, but I think 27 states, food service shall be provided at all times. Alcohol is served. I'm not arguing that. I'm not requesting that to be changed. I'm fine with even changing that for all hours of operation to make it even more clear, other than just the fact that when alcohol is served, just hours of operation. During any hours of operation, food has to be served. I'm all for that. I'm not trying to steer away from food, but having any kind of percentage placed on a bar to sell food it's unachievable. It's just an unachievable goal, and I understand what Commissioner Spathos said, that ABC, and I know he used the word never, but I actually am aware. I've been in business, entertainment business for 23 years. So I'm familiar with ABC making visitations to businesses that are running on a 47, but they don't serve any food. So they do make a visit on extreme cases. When they have a business that runs on a 47 license and are serving food but not selling food, they don't persecute them, because they know that as a business you can't force anything on any of your clients. And as far as anybody asking, actually, Mr. Aldo Schindler here did ask Joseph's twice for our receipts to confirm the sales of food to alcohol. I believe one of them was close, the other one we were a little lower on food sales. So it does happen. And so for me to put my business and my investment at risk on me breaking one of these and basically putting me up to fail is it's unfair. It's actually should be not acceptable. Considering the fact that I'm running a 48 license and the state of California does not require me to sell any food under that license. And again, I'm not saying I don't want to sell food. I will have food available during all operations of my business, during all operating hours. But for the fact that putting a percentage or a requirement of any kind of percentage is just, it's not right. It's unacceptable. Again, like we said, 35 and 36, and then along with those goes 63, which is from the police department, which falls under the same category, is the cover charge. And like I had requested earlier, if I am allowed to present any pay-per-view events, obviously by their contractual obligations, I'm obligated to charge a cover charge only during those times. And like I mentioned, holidays, possibly like a New Year's Eve party or something like that, to be allowed to charge cover charge. I'm not asking for any other allowances of cover charge outside of those parameters.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are you applying as a bar or a restaurant?
Bar.
Bar.
That's why it's a 48, which also requires me to serve to nobody under 21.
And your request is to have a television in the area.
And that's if I can fit one. I might not even be able to, by the way.
Yeah. And pay-per-view is optional.
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Simonian. I have one question here, and I think maybe this is kind of what staff was suggesting. Some of these conditions is you talked about having a TV inside for movies, and then maybe pay-per-views. Are both as important to you, or is one more important than the other?
No, pay-per-view is not that important to me. I just want to have the option.
Okay.
It's not that important.
And in terms of line item, the cover charge, is that if there is no pay-per-views, is that limited to a New Year's party or any other type of event?
It
other
would
than
be
maybe New
limited
Year's?
to a New Year's party or potentially, and I don't know if this covers it or not. Again, I'm not that in tune with the way these things are written and how the scope of this. For example, if I were to have a charity function, allow a charity to run a function at the location, they will probably charge something at the door to make money. I don't know if that would be breaking this or not. Again, that would be a question for them, not me. I don't know. I don't know what the how. I don't know based on the wording. I don't know how that would fall. Just the ability of being able to charge cover charge on only special occasions, not as a norm. I don't think anybody charges cover charge on Downey Avenue, so it would be actually shooting myself in the foot if I did. So it's not something that's going to be a common business practice anyway. I'm asking for it for only those special events, or a potentially, if I'm allowed to have a pay-per-view event, to charge for a cover charge for a pay-per-view. Like I said, just like Mambo does, or Joseph's does, or BRB now, Ola does, or so on and so forth. DB Lounge, the list goes on in Downey.
Okay, and then just one other question here. I think last time, I think the staff said that live entertainment would be 2 performers. You requested 4. Are you in agreement with the 2? Are you looking for more?
No, to be honest with you, I think 2 is fine. I think my initial presentation, and if I remember correctly when I spoke, I said it would be like a singer, lounge singer with a musician, a guitarist or a keyboardist or maybe a piano. I don't know if I can fit a piano in there, but something of that sort. So I'm not looking to have like a band in there. I don't think the decibel level limits that I have would allow me to have anything really more than a 2-person band. I mean, maybe.
Okay, so condition 22 you're okay with?
I'm okay with all the conditions except for the ones I listed. I mean, to me, it's not really a sticking point. Like a DJ, I'm not looking to hire a DJ in there. I'm not looking to hire. Again, like I had mentioned before, the music aspect of it was never really a big part of the whole scope of the business. I think the main thing was the look, which, just the design, the airy flow, just the atmosphere altogether. I can play ambient music in the back, pretty much what the lounge singer is going to sing. Sometimes, obviously, having a live performer present enhances the experience. So I will have a live performer, but given the limited seating I have and the limited amount of potential clients at one time, might limit my ability to hire a musician because of cost. So I'm not really that concerned about the number of performers. I think 2 is actually enough anyway, because of the space constraints.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Did we want to go back to them since I read the numbers and I restated them correctly, or are we done?
Does any commissioner have any questions? No? No, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Secretary Kavanaugh, may I have the first speaker on the phone?
Chair, there are no calls for public comment.
Okay. Secretary Kavanaugh, do we have any written public comment on items PLN-20-0029 to be read into the record?
There are no public comments, no written correspondence.
Okay. We will now invite those present in the council chambers to speak at the podium. If anybody wants to speak in favor or against the application, State your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Edward Reyes. I live in Downey, 11635 Ryerson Avenue, Downey. I lived in Downey for 25 years. My family lives here. My brothers live here. My kids grew up in Downey. I am invested in Downey, and I feel, and I kudos to all of you, by the way. I recall the time when Downey, there was nothing happening in Downey. I have to go to Long Beach, to Fullerton, just to, find a wine bar or some sort of entertainment. So I do appreciate all that you guys have done in the city of Downey, because we're all invested in this. I missed the public participation hearing last month, I believe. And I would just like to say that listening to some of the issues that come up, the 3 issues that we're going back and forth, I find it's meaningful to Mr. Simonian. I'm hoping and I'm positive that the city, as well as Mr. Simonian, can find an agreement, because we are looking forward to it. In these times of pandemic, where we see a lot of small businesses folding, personally, I have 7 friends of mine where their business are totally shut down. In light of the customer protection program, in light of the PPP, they're done. And we have an investor over here in our city willing to put investment. We're looking forward for the new normal that we're gonna be faced with, I don't know, maybe sometime next year. So I just wanna communicate my support to Bella's Lounge, and I thank you all once again, and I hope your family are safe and healthy during these times, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before anybody else comes up, we need time to disinfect the podium. Would anybody else like to speak?
My name is Lillian Simonian, and I am Simon Simonian's wife. I am excited for this project. The vision, I wouldn't change anything about it. And also having a TV on site, I think especially now during this pandemic and during these uncertain times that we came across, something seems to be happening every day, something new. I think it's never a bad idea to have a TV, just even like for local news or anything. I just think that the TV idea is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mario Padilla. I live in Downey for 25 years. And I'm one of the, people that invest in Downey. So I'm a business owner. And every day, I just pass by, in my commute to home and see so many businesses, closing down. And I'm going through those hearings and see all these conditions. I'm like, why we make things so hard when things can be so simple? I know there are rules and regulations and laws that we need to follow, but giving a hard time to be able to somebody to invest their own money, putting their money in risk to see if we're going to be able to survive, instead of the city of Downey, rolling the red carpet to welcome those new businesses. Why we give a hard time? Why we don't just support them? Why we don't just commend them and say, let's make things easier? Of course we want things safe and nice and all the stuff you guys want to protect, all the community. Of course, that's your job. But at the same time, it's a new business. There's money involved. It's future involved. putting everything at risk. I mean, we wish them well that it's going to succeed, but you guys don't know. I mean, with all these regulations, I mean, is that the TV really a big deal? It's just something that we don't even have to spend wasting that time. To be honest, I'm like, it's more things important for somebody to come in and say, come on, open a business, invest in the city. He already has some businesses in the city. You guys already know. I mean, and it's going to be much better. So I'm just saying it would be much better if we support new businesses to open, especially in downtown Downey. People want to have some choices. You know, they can go to one side to another, and it looks nicer and make the city looks good. You know, and it's not everything a problem. I mean, I think that the idea in creating something great like that, coming something like from, you know, Hollywood and from Beverly Hills to Downey, I mean, I would be like, cheer, come on, do it, invest the money. That's my point of view. And I, you know, thank you very much for listening to me, but I hope you guys see that perspective and support people that want to invest, you know, in Downey, their own money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we will now close the public hearing. We can now begin deliberation.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add something real quickly, just wanted to say a few words, give some context. And Mr. Simone, I apologize that my staff didn't get you those conditions earlier. That's unacceptable. It's something that we're going to work on, so I do apologize for that. Some context on some of the conditions. I think one of the theoretical challenges at the last Planning Commission meeting on July 1st is the use of restaurant or a bar. And so we all went back and forth, the applicant and staff, just on what is a restaurant, what's a bar, you know, when do you cross that line? And so that's why you're seeing some of these hybrid conditions in this resolution. The second theme that we heard over and over again from the people that spoke in support of this application was, I don't want to continue to have to go to West Hollywood. I don't want to have to go to Beverly Hills. I don't want to have to go to Santa Monica for a sophisticated environment. And the applicant is bringing a sophisticated environment to Downey. Also, we heard that the environment was going to be quiet, a place where people can conduct business, not where they were going to have a lot of noise in the background. So sophisticated, quiet, and restaurant. And that's how these conditions came about, because in that type of environment, you generally don't have TVs, pay-per-view, and those types of activity. So I wanted, once again, to give that kind of context as to how these conditions, you know, made their way onto paper and why they're in front of you.
All right. Thank you, Aldo. With that said, Commissioner Owens, what are your thoughts?
I was going to use that very line, with that said. So I'm in agreement with what Community Development Director Schindler. To me, you know, my first initial thoughts are, it seemed to me that the characterization of this project as originally presented has changed, and has changed, you know, pretty not drastically, but just it has changed. So if you're keeping score, what I heard were there are 6 conditions here that need to be massaged according to the applicant or the request of the applicant. I wanted to quickly go through and comment on each one if everybody is tolerant of that.
Yes, go ahead.
So if you're good to go, I'm good to go. All right. So condition number 16, I have a question of the attorney, city attorney at the end of this, but is what is asked in that condition, is it ad infinitum? You know, and would the rest of my colleagues consider, you know, some conversation about an 18-month period, at 6-month intervals to go in and take a look at, the operation, see if they are complying. If the city attorney could answer the question on this item, then I could move on to the comments on the rest. But is this assumed by the next tenant? If Mr. Simonian, relieves himself of the business and moves on. That's my question of you.
So my understanding from that condition is that this review is ongoing, and the staff is nodding yes. So since it's a condition of approval, the next owner will assume those reviews as well.
All right, thank you. So the next item that I marked here, the condition 23 with the televisions, again, back to my original comment after Community Development Director Schindler had spoken, is that the character of the, of the original project to me had changed. But I do believe it was asked, the TV was in the original conversation for that very reason, background, if it's, old movies, to have just that ambient noise, in the background of a spot that was intended for, meet and greets for, of professionals is what I heard the first go around. All right. Condition 27 or 28, I asked the question on what the applicant thought was his percentage of food sales, acceptable, 25%. So I think, certainly we would discuss that. Next one I noted was 3536. Cover charge, maybe. I don't know if there's, I agreed with the applicant's explanation about if there was a charity event, and the way to make the money for that charity was, to have a cover charge at the door. 36, again, it's changed. I don't remember in the first go around here that there was any discussion about pay-per-view events being made available. I get it, everybody else is doing it, but I don't remember that being asked. And then the last one is 63, and 63 speaks back to the cover charge that I just spoke of a minute ago. So those are my comments. I mean, it seems to me, again, it has changed somewhat, and maybe I can't make a decision on it tonight. But thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Commissioner Owens. Commissioner Espatos, your thoughts? You're muted.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll kind of do the same thing and ask a question before I do that. And maybe Aldo would be able to answer that first question. In regards to number 16, as far as the initial 6-month review and annual review every year thereafter, is that review, obviously a CUP can be revoked at any time. What's the time frame on a normal CUP that doesn't have this, that's a review, a reason for review for any other business that has a CUP? Is it, the police department calling in? Is it too many citizen complaints? What is it that triggers a CUP on a regular conditional use permit that doesn't have this item number?
It's exactly what you said. It's calls for service, and it's either volume. It's quality and quantity. The types of calls for service that you get, and then the amount that you get. Also, to provide some clarity on this condition, this isn't the first bar use in Downey. We agree, but that's not how the sentence reads. It's the first bar use in downtown. So that's what is making us proceed cautiously. And then also to give you some background, this is the 5th city I've worked in, and in at least 3 of those cities, they've had conditions where you have reviews that occur in an incremental basis with establishments that have live entertainment. So it is an industry standard if you're taking a cautious approach to a use. Now, I'm not suggesting we have that condition in there, so of course it's a staff recommendation, but that's something the Planning Commission can talk about. You can change the increment. It was suggested by Commissioner Owens. to, an 18-month, limits. You can do them on a year. You can do them, however you folks think is fit. Also, the type of review can be flexible. It could be at the staff level. It could be something that comes back to the commission. So once again, that's more style based on the use that we have in front of us. We can help you with the language based on the desired direction that you want to head in. Or, of course, it's up to the commission. They could eliminate it altogether if they like.
Okay, so with that, without this item number in there, the city planning, whoever needs to review it is still able to review it and make modifications to the CUP, or is it only to revoke a CUP license? Can you do a review and modify CUP if it's not in here like this?
Well, I'll seek the assistance from the city attorney on that. To answer the first part of your question, so without this condition, the only interaction we're going to have is based on the calls for service. So if we start to get an egregious amount of calls for service, or if they're of a certain type in terms of severity, then we get involved. The applicant, I'm going to say this because the applicant mentioned it, the applicant did have to show proof of his receipts previously on 2 different occasions. And that's not because we proactively went out there. That was based on calls for service and complaints. And so they had reached the level that we needed to exercise that. We don't work in a policing capacity. We respond to complaints that are out there, and so we put in these types of conditions. So if it ever gets to that point, then we've got an ability to exercise this.
And
so can the CUP be modified, or is that just to revoke it if there is?
So there are times where if a business has a large volume of calls for service, or there's a need to review the CUP for either revocation or modification, that comes back to Planning Commission as a public hearing, and then we all discuss it with the applicant, and then determine what modification needs to happen, or if this needs to get needs to be a revocation. That's very rare since I've been here, but it is an option.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll go through and give my opinions, and then I guess we can deliberate and hear other thoughts. I would be open to what Commissioner Owen said on item number 16, since it is open to review either way, whether this is in there or not, an 18-month, so a 6-month initial review, and then 18 months, every 18 months thereafter for review on item number 16. Item number 23, I think one television is okay and is acceptable. I like the idea of this guy putting in old movies in there. I think it creates ambiance. I think it's a good idea. I think going overboard and putting in 2, 3, 4 televisions would be overkill, but I would agree in modifying item number 23 by saying including 1 television to play only old movies, no news, no sports, no nothing else. And with that, that kind of nixes item number 20. Oh, actually, item number 35 and 36, pay-per-view, I would say, no, I don't like the pay-per-view idea. I think then we're getting into a different type of business. So if you limit the TVs to 1, I would say the pay-per-view is out of the question, my opinion. And then also with that, I would agree. I think it's a good idea to have special occasion cover charges, special events, whether it be New Year's, whether it be a charitable event. I would be open to modifying that, which is related to item number 35 and 36. And then I agree also with Commissioner Owens on item number 28. Since the applicant mentioned that he was requested from someone, whether it was a planning commission or department or whatever in regards to receipts, I would be comfortable bringing that down to 25%. We all know at the end of the day, we want you to be successful and be there and create, a nice environment for people to go and have a drink in our city. But we also want you to maintain the initial concept of the bar, which is nice, classy, sophisticated, a place where you can go have a drink, talk business, and keep it that way. So those are my thoughts. I think I hit on all of them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Fermetta?
Okay, I'll start with item 16. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Owens and Commissioner Spatos to reevaluate the frequency. I don't have an issue with that. Extend it to, say, 18 months. Does that mean 18 months for 5 years? If there's no issues, then it goes higher, and then to every 2 years, for example. But there's an issue, then it can be reduced. The inspections. Just a thought. Just a thought. In regards to the television, I actually don't have an issue with providing a television. As you heard the applicant, he's not hung up on pay-per-view. So if it's a television to put on movies, classic movies, to give that ambience, I'm okay with that. Item number 28, since it's not a restaurant and reducing that amount to a 25, I have no issues. Actually, I agree. Cover charges. If it's for a fundraiser, I know they're very involved in the community, and they do give back to the community. And if they're doing a fundraiser for a good cause, and part of that is a cover charge, I don't have an issue with that. That should be possibly noted or allowed. And of course, pay-per-view for number 36, we can remove that. And a hosted event, would that be a fundraiser? If someone hosts a fundraiser at their facility?
Under the broad definition, that would count as a hosted event, but we can make a specification in 35 if that is the decision of the commission to state cover charge for admission to the business shall not be permitted at any time except for charity events, which would then allow the charity events, and hosted events will be to outside promoters.
Okay. That concludes my comments.
All right, thank you. Okay, as for me, I think we're kind of in a consensus. I'll speak a little bit about the items that were mentioned. Line item 16, I understand this is the first bar use only in downtown. I think on my time on the commission, we have treated people not as guilty in terms of, doing reviews until there's been calls for service. I'm okay with the initial 6-month review by staff, and maybe a 6-month review after with the commission if staff recommends it in terms of monitoring that first 6 months. As it is now, it is infinite, and that would be, I think that would be excessive to have infinite reviews. I don't believe we have, I haven't seen any as we've been in here to have infinite. So, I think calls for service can trigger them anyway. But for me, guys, I would say, this is a new type of business in the downtown, so I'm okay with the initial 6-month review. But after that, if the staff recommends another review in front of the commission 6 months later, I think that's also acceptable. But beyond that, I think it's should only be reviewed if it's needed by calls to service. Which I think is pretty consistent with other items we've had before. In terms of items 23, again, I don't see any problems with the TV, for movies, and I think we're all on that agreement. Movies, maybe news or whatnot, just not live pay-per-view, which the applicant stated. It's not a big issue. So whether they have 2 or 4 TVs to show movies, that's fine. I don't think it's going to add to loud. I don't think too many people get rowdy with movies, but I think it's up to the applicant too. If they really want to go for an upscale look, it's not going to be 20 TVs in there, and I don't know if there's even room. But if we just limited the TVs to if we condition to, maybe movies, news, not pay-per-view events. I think that would take care of 23. 28, the gross receipts. ABC does not require any sales for receipts. A couple of commissioners have kicked around 25%. I don't like putting a percentage on there, but that's something that if my fellow commissioners, want to see sales. I think the line item 27 covers that they have to serve food at all times. I'd try to give them a little leeway if we wanted to put a percentage of maybe 20%, just because of the type of food to drink is probably the ratio is going to be off. It's not an entree they're eating. So I can, again, if we want to put a percentage, that's my thing. I would rather not, but I could, we can discuss that. 35, 36, I think we're in agreement here that that should be limited to charity events and a New Year's event, not any pay-per-view events. I think that's something that I think the applicant would be in agreement upon, and I think that's kind of the commissioners where we're on the same page. I think some of this is a little tough for me in the sense of this is that these CUPs run with the land. If somebody wanted to do kind of a pay-per-view stuff and just turn it into a straight bar, that'd be their condition. I know that we shouldn't get so hung up on the image of the actual application as opposed to it running with the land. But I think that's just in terms of it's kind of hard to do consciously is not think about the actual what the presentation's being made of the type of business. But if it sounds like that would be not a problem deleting no pay-per-view events, especially what we intend the TVs to show. So that's kind of my general thoughts on that. And then again, 35, it would just be for charity events and a New Year's event. And I think that would also encompass 63. Other than that, I think all the other conditions are fine. I think the applicant and staff have did a great job in getting together. I know I think one thing we're missing, guys, and because I had a note here, is the 3rd Street railing with no seats. I think that's something that we could discuss. I've seen the renderings of the latest plans. I think it looks good the way it is, but I don't know if anybody else wanted to, discuss that in terms of the 3rd Street. I know that at the last hearing, there actually is no outside eating or drinking on 3rd Street for noise issues. But looking at the west view on our plans here, I think that looks nice. But that's maybe something that we missed in discussion. So those are my points. And I'll open up just an open discussion with the commissioners. Anybody want to chime in something extra?
You want to go by the line items that we started with, which was number 16?
Mr. Fermetta, Vice Chair Fermetta.
I'm not actually opposed in making this not infinite, which it is right now, infinite on the inspections. And I'm propose that we can do Commissioner Owens suggested 18 months, every 6 months and one inspection. And if every 6 months there's no issues, then they've passed, and it ends there.
So it ends at 18 months.
At 18 months.
At 3 6-month interviews. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Owens or Spatos, do you agree to that?
Here's what, absolutely. Here, I would agree with that. Here's what we might do is, Chair, you may advise staff to work on language, according to, our comment, when we have consensus, like, develop the language for 16 as we just left it with consensus and move on accordingly would be my suggestion. Because I think we're in agreement. What I heard as we went around with comments on these things, we're in agreement in about 4 out of 6 of them, and 2 of them need a little more discussion. Is kind of what I heard in the exchange of a few minutes ago.
Okay. So it sounds like right now for line item 16, the commissioners would agree to 3 reviews every 6 months, up to 18 months, which is 3. Well, yeah, 3. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Crystal, can we work on language on that?
Yes, if the commission can provide clarification, would that be staff reviews or planning commission reviews?
I would say.
How about?
Yeah, go ahead.
I might suggest this. How about if it warrants a commission review, based on responses? If not, then it's in staff's hands.
Yeah, and that's kind of something I mentioned, that it would be at staff level. If needed, then it could be at the commission level.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may, the language being drafted is, as the first bar-only use in the downtown, 6-month reviews shall be conducted by staff at the staff level for an 18-month period following approval, a total of 3 reviews, and shall only be presented to the Planning Commission if warranted by calls for service.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree with that.
Yep. Good.
Okay. Now 23. Do we want to
23.
Yeah.
I think we're okay with televisions. Do we want to put a number on it? Do we want to say 1, 2, 3 only to play old movies?
Well, I don't know if it just says old movies, but how about if we take away the live entertainment? To me is pay-per-view.
Right.
And I don't know if that's how staff use it. I think no pay-per-view is what I gather from the commissioners, and feel free to correct me if that is not the case, commissioners.
And
No, I agree with that. I agree with that definition. No pay-per-view.
Agreed. In regards to television, can that be also, if he prefers not to have a actual TV mounted, that it can be a projection?
We can revise the language to identify that televisions or projection may be used for playing old movies. Just for clarification, again, as Chair Duarte was mentioning, when staff reviews these applications, we do look at the operator and the presentation before us, but what staff is always charged with is looking at the use itself and what potential future operators can do with the conditions and the approvals that are given. The reason why televisions are included as a classification for live entertainment, and again, that's not what's being presented tonight, but the potential is some bars, some nightclubs, those types of things have televisions playing music videos and those types of things. And I think there was a reference to it somewhere tonight. That's why staff includes television in its definition of live entertainment. So if we're putting that in tonight for the old movies, we would like some specification in there as well.
So, is it okay? So if they wouldn't have live TV and just movie playing, would that still be considered live entertainment?
And again, we understand the intent right now. It's, so the projection typically isn't what you would see with those associated uses. So that is definitely a distinction that can be made. Again, I understand as presented tonight, the applicant is still filtering out what option is best for him. So if the commission wanted to give him the option, we would ask for specification that it be for the intent of playing old movies, if the operator were to ever change in the future.
Okay.
So
I agree with that. I think it's a good idea to start there and limit the amount of television so it doesn't turn into a a sports bar. And I know the applicant has made it very clear. He knows what he wants there, and it's going to be a nice, sophisticated, classy place. So I'm sure there's not going to be, 10 televisions in there. So I think limiting it to 2 televisions playing, specific movies, genre of movies is a good place to start. That way it limits what we're looking at. I think what Crystal mentioned was important in that in the future, we don't want this turning into a sports bar. So I think it's important to focus on that.
Is staff clear about what old movies are?
Yeah, I think that's a little.
Right, and I think correct, and
Avatar.
I think the genre movies, maybe that phrasing is a little bit more specific, and that would be better used.
And I think we're fine with projection too. I know Edison Bar downtown doesn't have TVs, but they do have a projector, and they actually I think play classical. The no sound movies. So when we're talking about that, guys, I think we do have to be very specific and not so open-ended. So, the way I look at it, I think limiting with no pay-per-views is covers the live entertainment, but it sounds like some of us, we want to restrict that a little more. So if somebody wants to flesh that out a little further, they can.
I think we should narrow it down, Chairman, because, that also means that he can throw on a boxing match or UFC. So I think even if it's not pay-per-view, there's a 24-hour UFC channel. So I think we should narrow it down to somehow
to non-sports.
Keep it. Yeah, or maybe no sports, sure,
Okay.
or somehow to keep it focused. I think no sports is a good, wide-ranging restriction of what they're able to play on there. That might be a good place to start.
Okay, so I see no sports. In terms of I think it was mentioned music videos or not, that could be kind of the ambient music in the background. So I don't know if we want to include that or not. I would say not. I think no pay-per-views and no sports is covers it. But again, I'm here to hear your thoughts on that.
I would agree with no pay-per-view, no sports as the limits, because we could really, spend a long time.
I agree.
Trying to categorically, place things that are in versus things that are out. So I'm okay with that, Mr. Chair.
Like an old movie for me is Karate Kid, but it might be to kill Mockingbird for somebody else. So that's
right.
How about if we do that, Crystal? Line item 23: televisions are permitted, as long as there's no pay-per-view or no sports.
Yeah, the language that staff is drafting is 2 televisions and or a projector are permitted to play genre movies only. No pay-per-view or sports shall be permitted.
How do you guys feel about that?
That's fair. I like it.
Eric, that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's as good as it's going to get.
All right, there we go. As good as it gets. Another movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay, so moving on to now line item 28. My thoughts were no percentage because the actual ABC doesn't require one. If so, I know the commissioners had spoke about 25. If we had to go percentage, I would say lower to 20 because of the differential in the price of the drinks and in terms of the appetizers. But what are your thoughts, commissioners?
I'll start. So it sounds like Mr. Chair, that in regards to this particular license, it's a 0. I think people are going to buy food. I'm not hung up on the 25 as a must goal. Year 20 sounds great because again, I think people will buy some level of food, so it will satisfy our interest at whatever percentage that ends up being. That's my comment.
Okay, Mr. Spatos.
I'm good with the 20% as well.
Okay. I think he changed his background, huh?
Yeah, my internet got disconnected, so I'm on my phone now.
Okay. And Vice Chair Fermetta?
I'm okay with the 20, but I'm also hung up because from my background, whatever the code says goes. And there's no requirement from a code standpoint. So I don't feel also comfortable holding anyone accountable to something that the code that exceeds that. I know that the applicant said 25 earlier, and the commissioners are proposing 20. If 20 it is, it's 20, or if we remove it, we remove it. I am okay either way.
Okay. Let's see. It sounds like 20 or nothing, but if we're looking into 28.
Yeah, I would prefer, I don't think it's a good idea to leave it at 0. I think the applicant seemed more than comfortable at 25%. So being 20%, I think, is meeting in the middle and being very fair.
I agree. I'd like to see language that memorializes the 20%.
Okay. Is that something that we would like maybe as part of a review?
And to remove it after?
We'll see if it's working. Because right now I'm hearing 20%.
I would leave, sure, the city might consider that as criteria, review criteria, and whether we are, apprised of it in the future as to what the number actually was, it'd be nice to hear, just to see if, like you said, Mr. Chair, if it worked. But I would think that the city would put that on their list of things to check, at the 6-month intervals. That's my comment.
Check, okay.
Are we saying every 6 months you're going to check to see if?
No, he's saying, actually, he was saying that could be something that maybe staff would review, but it does not necessarily have to be put in the CUP.
Remove it from here, but something that they check for those 3 inspections. Is that what you're saying?
I would say for the first inspection.
Or, okay, 1 of 3.
Yeah. Or we could just leave it at, gross receipts establishment must reflect 20% of the sales.
Yeah, and in order to have staff check, you have to have it in here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the answer, Commissioner Fermetta, is yeah, we would check. So at the 6-month interval, we'd go through the inventory of the items on the resolution, and we would confirm compliance with those items.
Question, is that an item that coincides with number 16, or is that a completely different item? That's just an item that states 20% of sales in perpetuity as far as the CUP is concerned, correct?
Yeah, the answer is both. So the answer is yes, it'd be something that's checked on the 6-month intervals. Then at the conclusion of those 3 6-month intervals, it's something that stays on the CUP and will run with the land.
Yes, because we need to make sure it's also operating somewhat as a restaurant.
Correct.
Well, hold on. It's not a restaurant. It's a bar.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have an issue with that, because we're holding them almost accountable as a restaurant.
Sure, and there's I think some theoretical things that are going on here. So I think we just need to be comfortable with what the use is. So is it a bar or is it a restaurant? So it was staff's perception that it was a bar. It's now being presented tonight versus at the last meeting as if it's a bar. So I think we just need to gain some comfort there. Number 2, ABC was thrown around a lot in terms of what those different licenses allow for or require. ABC allows you to be more restrictive than the license that's provided, but it doesn't allow you to be less restrictive So you could add this provision to that license type.
But we're already adding that he has to serve food all the time alcohol is being served.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree. I just wanted to give you some
No,
context. Yeah.
because if it was a bar, no food, right? Typical bar doesn't have food. This, we're
Right.
requiring them to have food.
That is
So I'm like, in that case, I don't know why we put in a percentage.
okay. So, Commissioner Espatos, Owens,
Yeah,
it's
if I
27.
can chime in, I think putting that in, you can always say that he's regulated to always serving food. However, there's no, after 18 months, he can just have, trays of food in the back and say, well, food's here, nobody's ordering it. So I think putting a percentage on, I think it comes up to us as a commission is, what do you want there after 18 months? Do you want strictly a bar with no food, or do you want after 18 months? Because we got to put ourselves in his shoes for now, but understand in the future what's going to happen here. And in 18 months, he could say, well, we technically do serve food, but we're not required to have a percentage, so it's here if you want it. But as far as we're concerned, we're a bar. So I think it's up to us. Do we want this to be strictly a bar in 18 months? Because essentially that's what we're saying if we don't put a 20% number on it. At least a 20%.
That's a very good point, Commissioner Spathos. I agree with that in total. What do we want at the milestone of 18 months? That's very important. So, good point. I would agree and maintain that the 20% has to be more memorialized as part of this condition.
Vice Chair Ferreira, you have any rebuttal?
I still struggle with that, to be honest with you. I struggle that we're putting a 20%, requiring him to have food service shall be provided at all times, which means he has to have a menu. And I don't see how they will get away from that, from not serving food. What would be the consequences if that theory that was mentioned that he has food in the back but he's not serving it?
Well, it's what I said earlier in terms of the applicant's experience at his other location. It's something we only check if the calls for service dictated. And so, once again, we start this as the Planning Commission said. We don't start it with somebody being guilty. We start it with somebody not being guilty and they're going to be a good operator. We put these conditions in place to provide that framework. And so we may never go out and check the percentage of the food if we're never called upon. If we are called upon, it turns into one item of non-compliance with maybe some others that start to build an administrative record for a Planning Commission staff report. So once again, if it's being operated in a responsible manner, it's not something we'd ever go out and check.
I'm just going to conclude by saying that it's covered by 27. I don't think 28 needs to be there.
Okay. Well, I think we're kind of a stalemate on that. So I would say this is I'm kind of agreeing with you, Vice Chair, in terms of if food's going to be sold at all times, then that's enough. I don't think somebody's going to hold food back in the back and not sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of Commissioner Owens and Spatzos, they make a valid point. 20% sales. I guess we're kind of a stalemate. So, if anybody has a winning argument, now's the time.
Yeah.
I think that if he's operating this with the type
of business that was presented, because we have to go back to the way the business was presented. This is part of the business plan. So I think 20% for him, he's a successful businessman. He has an operation up the street. I really don't think it's a hook for him. So it basically comes down to us is, do we want it to operate as a bar after 18 months? Because essentially that's what it's going to be if we say, 18 months, no percentage of food required. And obviously, it's up to the city, right? If they're going to go out and enforce 20% food sales, and it becomes it's a moot point if it becomes successful, right? But if it doesn't become successful, it's an issue. So I think that's what we need to consider is, do we want strictly a bar there after 18 months? Because yes, there's going to be food, but if the food doesn't work, he's not going to be pushing the food. So that's what we need to consider, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
He always has to have food available. He has to have a menu.
A menu.
That never changes because that stays here. After,
Correct.
Whether it's before the 18 months or after the 18 months.
Right. That doesn't work.
And the other issue that was raised by the applicant is even before the 18 months are up, he's going to be making food available, but he can't make people buy the food.
Yeah.
And he's afraid that he'll never be able to achieve this percentage, I think is the issue.
Correct.
Because whether it's a bar or not, it doesn't matter before the 18 months or after. He's got to offer a menu, and he's still going to be serving drinks.
Right.
So
Right.
The issue is going to be, do you want to hold him to some percentage or not, based on his concerns with this?
Commissioner Owens, did that persuade you?
So, the applicant was good with 25. We lowered it to 20. It's, it's a goal that at 25 he thought he could meet. So I'm still on my position, original position of it needs to be memorialized because of 18 months down the road, or this changes hands and a new tenant is in there. We don't want to end up, regretting is I guess the simplest way to term it. But the applicant was good with the 25, and we're proposing 20.
All right. How about let me throw this one out there. If we lowered the percentage to 10 or 15%, would that change anybody's position?
I think we're just talking. I think we're trying to, I know details are important, but I think this is more of the concept of what's going in there. I think if we start doing, numbers, 8%, 10%, 12%, I think we have to hold a standard. And with that standard, it makes people work to achieve that standard. And I agree with Commissioner Owens. I think the applicant stated he was okay with 25%. Discussing it is just opening up a can of worms for us in regards to what we want there. So he's, by the way, we did mention food and, the food items that they have to order. This is not going to be inexpensive stuff. I think achieving a 20% food to alcohol margin should not be that difficult. If the applicant was okay with 25%, I think 20% is a target that in the business proposal that he showed us, I think it's part of his business plan. I don't think he just wants to serve cocktails. I think he wants it to be a nice, elegant, classy place where you can order some appetizers, have a cocktail. It's part of the appeal of the business. And by him being okay with the 25%, honestly, I think he would have been okay with the 50%, but we're working with him to succeed and make this business successful. So ultimately it works for him. But what Commissioner Owens said was, yes, we need to be concerned with the city of Downey and what happens in the future. If the business sells, if somebody else comes along, there's no requirement. You can serve meatballs. And you have food. So I think we need to be firm on what we want there. And if it's something that's classy and maintained and is what we were initially presented, I think being 20% is more than fair, especially when the applicant was okay with 25%, and it goes along with the appeal of what he's looking to do there. So I don't know. And at this point, I think we're right down the middle, so we're kind of stuck. But I don't know, maybe we can bring the applicant up and he's ready to go home. And if he's okay with the 20%, we can shut that one down and move on to the next one.
Yeah. We'd have to reopen the hearing. I just, and maybe we do that, and maybe we don't. I don't think categorizing it as the applicant was fine with 25% is accurate. But if you guys want to reopen and ask the applicant, we can, if we're at a stalemate.
It looks like we are. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think to have the applicant back up, reopen the hearing is not in our best deliberation, if you will, only because his ultimate goal would, no disrespect, would be zero. So that would be in his best interest served. I'm just going to continue to go with, we've got to get something in here, however acceptable it could be across the board, or even changing one of your minds, to 3-1, to ensure the future. Both Commissioner Spathos and I keep coming back to that. I think it's a natural to have food sales, in and around alcohol. Sure, some people just like to have alcohol only, but I personally, I would have something to eat with it. And so I think we have to continue to keep the food sales as part of this and memorialize it.
All right, so I'll go back to Vice Chair Fermetta.
I think we're all in agreement, every single one of us, that we do not want this to become a bar only. And I think that's where we're stuck. And I see also Jimmy's view, and I see Owen's view in regards to holding them to a percentage to make sure that there's always food. And also at the same time, I don't want to open this up and prolong it for the applicant and for not a major reason, or not be able to approve this tonight, and because we're split.
Mr. Chair, if I may just provide a little bit of staff's perspective when putting all of these conditions together. My experience, not in this city, but in other jurisdictions, the percentage does provide a certain amount of incentive for the operator to ensure that they are providing food. While it was stated earlier that the menu has to be available throughout the entire time of alcohol service, some operators, and I'm not stating this current proposal, we're always looking at the future use. What has been seen is some operators do officially offer the menu, but they don't stock their kitchens with all of those items. So when we have gone in other jurisdictions and looked at all the gross sales receipt, they fall short because there isn't the checks for them, and because they technically meet the condition by offering the menu, they just happen to be out of many of the items on the menu. Providing the percentage and the ability to check it at some point provides the incentive to try to meet that goal.
Can I also say something, Chairman Duarte?
Yes, go
I
ahead.
think we need to take into consideration of how the citizens of Downey will view this as a decision that the Planning Commission made. So if we go in and we don't put any restriction on it, and this thing becomes a raucous bar, and now it's all right, it's a nice classy place, and we go in starting to do that, but at the end of the day, if he goes in and makes it a nice classy place and it doesn't make money, it's going to turn around and be a rough, raucous place that's making money if the first idea doesn't work. And that's it's strictly business. It has nothing to do with anything else. So I think that's what we need to focus on is, okay, how are the residents of Downey going to view this? Is we approve something that's a bar only, and in, a year from now, this turns into, whatever it turns into. Oh, well, this was approved with a bar only license. It's the first of its kind in downtown Downey. And I agree. I'm all for bringing, young people to Downey and having a nightlife. But I think we need to do it and start it slowly, conservatively, and make sure that we're doing it the right way. And, I think it's important to consider what it may turn into if we don't put some type of restriction on it. I think the applicant's going to be happy either way. Ultimately, if the place becomes successful, business people want to make money. So if he's making money, it doesn't matter. If he's not, it doesn't matter, because he's not going to be there for a while. So we need to look at the future. We need to look at how we're representing the residents of Downey and what will happen in the future if this doesn't maintain consistency with what was presented. So,
Okay.
I don't know. I think if we're at a stalemate, maybe we can open it back up and see what his thoughts are, because it may not be a big issue for him. If it is a big issue, I think, we have to go back to the drawing board.
I think, Commissioner Spatos, I don't think that's going to be necessary. I kind of like the language that Crystal used. Give somebody, benchmark and incentive.
Right.
I just don't like holding people's feet to the coals if they don't meet it. But I think Commissioner Fermetta wanted to say a couple words.
Actually, Jimmy, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. With exactly, I'm not going to reiterate, but we're looking out for what our residents and.
All right, so I guess 28 could read.
Yeah.
With 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal?
Condition 28 will be revised to read: gross receipts for the establishment must reflect 20% of all sales as for food items.
No, I think 35 and 36 will be a lot easier, guys. The cover charge for admission to business shall not be permitted at any time. I think we've spoken about charity events and New Year's. Are we all in agreement with that?
Agree.
Agreed.
Yes.
And that also changes 36 condition.
Okay, so the new condition 35 will read: cover charge for the admission to the business shall not be permitted at any time except for charity events and a New Year's Eve event.
Does that sound good, you guys? Sounds good to me. I think that's what we're looking for, yes?
Agreed.
Sounds great.
Now, going on to 36, I think the second part of the form of pay-per-view events, that's consistent, but the first part would be to include charity events.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could just delete it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So there should be no form of pay-per-view events at the location.
Mm-hmm. So condition 36 will now read: there shall be no form of pay-per-view events at this location.
Correct. Guys, you agree with that?
Sounds great.
Yes.
Okay, so then that would lead us to 63. And I think we could probably just delete that one on. Yeah, so guys, striking 63.
Agree to strike.
Yes.
Okay, so we would strike conditional use 63.
And then there was a typo on 18.
Yes. So condition 18 will be revised to identify live entertainment hours of operation are permitted as follows: Friday and Saturday from 4 p.m. to 1:30 a.m.
Yeah, you said 4 p.m.?
I apologize, 9 p.m. to 1:30 a.m.
Oh.
Sheesh.
I think with that, is there any other issues that any of the commissioners would like to? That was the last item would be the railing along 3rd Street. Any commissioners want to start with that in terms of their thoughts?
I'll chime in here. I think that actually might be a good idea. I like that it adds ambiance if you're looking at the business coming south on Downey Avenue. So I would be okay with that. I think it's a good idea. I think it adds to the charm of the business. So
Just for clarification, Commissioner Spatos, when you say you're all right with that, do you mean?
I would be okay in allowing it to exist and adding a railing, or potentially extend the glass that goes on from Downey Avenue, because the glass is already going on a little part of 3rd Street from what it looks like here. So that would extend to include further down 3rd Street, and only to include not an eating area, but a drinking, standing area, or the applicant also mentioned potentially a smoking area. Because the way I look at it, people are going to gather there either way. If they go out and want to have a cigar, they're not going to sit in front of Downey or whatever. They'll probably go off to the side and have a cigar, cigarette, whatever. So I would be open to that.
Actually, a very good point, Commissioner Spatos. Commissioner Owens? Did we lose him?
Mr. Chair, if I may interject, for clarification for your discussion, if there is a railing placed along 3rd Street, it would be standing only. They would not be able to comply with ADA requirements if it was seating in that area. So perfectly within your jurisdiction to allow. I just wanted to clarify it would be standing only.
Yeah, and I think in the presentation that was mentioned before, also by the applicant, that nobody would be, there would be no chairs, anything, or seating there.
Or tables allowed.
No tables.
There was also a little bit of confusion. It wasn't off by inches. It was off by a solid foot or foot and a half. In terms of the encroachment into that public right of way.
So I was gonna go ask that question. Adding that, does it still allow the sidewalk to have the proper measurement for ADA?
You know, the answer is that's based on the width of what that area is going to be, but it's going to have to. So it wouldn't make it out of building plan check if it didn't allow for 48 inches clear pathway through that whole thing. Now, that then may make that area more narrow, which the applicant is going to have to figure out if it adds value or not based on its width.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm open to it if we can get an agreement to extend that and make it, whatever the applicant decides will work there, standing area, smoking area.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have people gathering there either way.
Yeah.
So I think if he's able to somehow enhance it, make it look nice, work it into his business, I think it would not only help it look better, but help his business as well.
Commissioner Owens, what are your thoughts?
I agree with everything that Commissioner Spathos had said, and also appreciate Aldo pointing out, it'll have to be modified in accordance with whatever available space is there, to provide the proper ADA. So, and the look is a good look. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Vice Chair Permetta?
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Spatos and Owens. If the space is available and they're able to place the glass fencing or on that side, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think Commissioner Spatos made a very good point. If people are going to gather there anyway, And it would just be consistent. I would just add, just be consistent to what's on Downey Avenue and that small stretch of Third in terms of the design, to make it all around, be consistent. I think it looks nice. And, I think it actually helps with loitering in terms of onto the walkway. So I would be in favor of allowing the applicant to have his to have that little glass area all along Third Street. That's just consistent with what the plans are here. So I don't know which one we have to revise on that.
Okay, Mr. Chair Duarte, if Planning Commission resolution, it would be condition 1, we would add a new subsection E to state a standing room area enclosed by glass rail shall be permitted along 3rd Street, subject to ADA compliance and a Public Works encroachment permit.
Okay, great. With that, guys, do we have a motion?
I motion.
I second.
Little clarification.
Little
We're going to approve the recommended action and adopt the resolution with the amended conditions of approval as
Correct.
stated by the city planner.
Is that correct, Mr. Vice Chair Fermenta?
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we have a second by Commissioner Spatos. So we have a
I'm sorry, Chair, the first was who?
Huh?
First and second, or who?
it was Vice Chair Fermenta was the motion, and Commissioner Spatos was the second.
Okay. Commissioner Owens is absent. I'm sorry, I apologize. Commissioner Dominguez is absent. Commissioner Owens?
Aye.
Commissioner Spatopoulos?
Aye.
Vice Chair Fermetta?
Aye.
And Chair Duarte?
Aye.
And the motion passes with 4 in favor and Commissioner Dominguez absent to adopt Resolution 20-3126, thereby approving the site plan review and conditional use permit PLN 20-00029, subject to the conditions, modified conditions of approval.
All right, thank you. Congratulations to the applicant. Okay, moving on to the non-agenda public comments. Before we begin the non-agenda public comment period, I'd like to remind members of the public participating telephonically that the city's meeting rules contained in the Downey Municipal Code prohibit any conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting, even if you are participating telephonically. Each speaker should have 3 minutes to address the commission on issues that are within the commission's jurisdiction. Members of the public wishing to address the public commission shall, regarding non-agenda public comments only, may now call our teleconference line at 562-299-6622. For those who submitted comments via email, your comments will be read into the record and no further public comment. For those present in the council chambers, email comments are provided. Secretary Kavanaugh, may I have the first speaker on the phone?
Chair Duarte, there are no calls for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any written public comment on non-agenda items?
There are no written correspondence for non-agenda public items.
Okay, and I see nobody here in the chambers, so we will now close the non-agenda public comments and move on to the consent calendar. Before we begin the consent calendar comment period, I'd like to again remind members of the public participating telephonically that the city's meeting rules contained in the Downey Municipal Code prohibit any conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting, even if you're participating telephonically. Each speaker shall have 3 minutes to address the commission on the consent calendar items. Members of the public wishing to address the planning commission regarding consent calendar items only may now call our teleconference line at 562-299-6622. For those who submitted comments via email, your comments will be read into the record and no further public comment via teleconference will be permitted. For those present in the council chambers, your comments will be taken after phone and email comments are provided. Secretary Kavanaugh, do we have the first speaker on the phone?
There are no calls for public comment for
We
a
have-
consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any written public comment?
There are no written public comments.
Okay, and I see nobody here in the chambers to speak. We will,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve on the consent calendar the items 2, 3 as written.
okay. And we have a second from Vice Chair Fermetta.
Commissioner Dominguez is absent. Commissioner Owens?
Aye.
Commissioner Spathopoulos?
Aye.
Vice Chair Fermetta?
Aye.
And Chair Duarte.
Aye.
And the motion passes to adopt the consent calendar and with a vote of 4 in favor and Commissioner Dominguez absent.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, now is the time for other business. Does any commissioner have any items they want to discuss?
I have a question on something that was included in our package in regards to Joseph's Bar and Grill being open for the past 2 weeks. Do we have any information on that? I know it wasn't mentioned through our meeting here on correspondence, but there's a letter attached here. I don't know if anyone else saw it.
Yeah.
Do we have any input on that or explanation, or do we know what's happening there?
Sure. Planning Commissioner, if you're referencing the exhibit that was in the package that's on planning.
11.
Yeah, Planning Commission, agenda page 11. Joseph's Bar, we have received complaints from the community that Joseph's Bar and Grill has not been complying with the public health order from the county, and it has been open a few times. We did get one written complaint, and that's what we inserted in the agenda packet. We continue to monitor all businesses in terms of how they operate during this pandemic. What we do is we send out code enforcement to make contact to remind a business like Joseph's in terms of what their parameters of operation are. If they don't comply, we refer those businesses to the public health department with the County of Los Angeles.
Okay. So are they operating as a bar now or as a restaurant? Because I know, some restaurants, actually Lock and Key across the street has opened the outdoor dining area. So is it as a bar or as a restaurant that they're open?
They're supposed to be operating as a restaurant. Those infractions were made when they were operating as a bar and conducting their business indoors.
Oh, okay. Do we go out as a city with code enforcement to close them down, or how does that work?
No, well, we do go out with code enforcement to make contact to educate them so that hopefully they change their operation pattern in the future. The county has the ultimate power in terms of enforcing the public health order. Some cities like LA have gone the distance of turning off utilities to bars. There was an article in today's LA Times about the mayor going after house parties, similar to the one that occurred this weekend, I think, in Beverly Hills, to turn off utilities as well to those activities. The city hasn't gone to those levels and would most likely default to the county's health department.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Just for clarification, when I read this, there was a time when the bar were actually open for a limited time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
May have been.
Very short period.
Yeah, very short period.
Like a 2-week period.
The challenge is some bars and other businesses that weren't allowed to operate continue to operate.
And then they saw the spike in
They saw the spike and then they closed them down.
That's correct.
Yeah. Because
And
right
then
now
they
in
moved
Downey,
everything outdoors.
yeah, because at Downey Avenue right now, everything I see is outdoors. So that might have been a little clarification, Jimmy. But now going on, does anybody have any other items for the business? No? Okay. Director Schindler, do you have any staff comments?
I do. Thank you, Chair Duarte. It is mentioned, and as everybody has probably seen, we closed Downey Avenue between 2nd and 3rd Street, and that was at the request of the businesses, specifically the restaurants that are located on that street. And that was also done in partnership with the district, and the district is the property owner association in downtown. Council had a discussion on the item as well at their last meeting, and the gist is we'd like to watch it and assess it to make sure that it's successful. Because for everything that you do, there's going to be supporters and opponents. And some folks also are a little bummed out about the traffic flow and the way that parking is spilling over. So it's never perfect, but the goal was to support the businesses that are there within that area and create that little restaurant hub. As was mentioned also, you've seen outcroppings of what we call parklets into the street to expand the outdoor dining for those businesses. The goal is to get them to 100% occupancy outside because they can't operate inside. And also that caused for the relocation of the farmers market, which the farmers market operators are ecstatic about. They love their new location. We're tracking, most importantly, the customers to make sure our residents are also happy with the relocation of that farmers market. And so once again, we're going to continue to monitor that to make sure that it's successful on all fronts. On a related note, the planning staff also put out program standards for other businesses that want to operate outdoors, because as you've probably heard on the news, salons, barbershops, personal care facilities, and gyms are all eager to operate outdoors because they can't indoors. So we put together some standards for those businesses to follow. They also, when necessary, need to default back to their state regulatory agencies. But the goal there too is to try to keep them profitable through this pandemic. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I'll just say this. I actually like the closing just because I'm on Downey Avenue, my business. And I, for some reason on Downey Avenue, coming off 5th, everybody would just think it was a freeway. And it was like Russian roulette trying to back out of your parking spot in front of Downey Avenue. So I think it's helped in that sense. So with that, we will adjourn at 9:09.